One of the greatest artists in history, Pablo Picasso, once said that every child is born an artist. The problem is how to remain one once we grow up. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm sure everyone at some point in their childhood has drawn or painted before. However, the practice seems to decline as we get older. In my case, I'm someone who has spent a lot of my time practicing several different forms of art. And so, I'm here to tell you that whether it is something like sculpting, writing, or even just doodling on a piece of paper, picking up an artistic hobby will be a decision that you will definitely not regret. My reasoning behind why I believe that people should consider dedicating even just a bit of their time to some creative hobby is because art is open to anyone. It improves our mental health and it's pretty fun overall. Now, when you first think about art, what is it that comes to mind? Do you think of paintings, music, or maybe even poetry? Even though they are not all the same, these are all art forms which allow people to express themselves and their thoughts. Nowadays, we don't consider there just to be one form of art, but many, which is more of a reason why anyone could find something which suits them. In my case, I found digital art to be extremely fascinating. However, maybe you're more interested in creating and making things with your hands, so pottery might be for you. Or maybe you're someone who can't go a day without listening to music, so playing an instrument might be more up your alley. Art can mean so many different things, and it isn't just made for specific people. Whether someone views themselves as some really artistic person or not doesn't really matter either, because in the end, art is something which is open to anyone who wants to participate in it. All of those great artists, for example, that you see who have created something which seems nearly impossible, didn't just wake up one day with those skills. All of those people had to also start somewhere at one point. The many different categories and the beginner-friendly aspect to art ties back into my reasoning of why we should include it into our lives. And now that we've looked at one reason as to why we should include it in our lives, let's look at some of the benefits. Many different practices in art, such as sketching or drawing, for example, are generally pretty relaxing hobbies. So, it should come to no surprise that engaging in the arts is a great way for someone to relieve any stress or anxiety that they've built up over time. I'm sure we all remember the pandemic and just how much of an isolating experience that was for most of us. Well, during that time of isolation, a bunch of people actually ended up turning to art. This was a way for many to escape all of the negative feelings and worries that came with this sudden global event. And besides these experiences, there's even research which shows that the process of creating art betters our well-being. One very simple example is that engaging in art causes an increase in our dopamine levels. And some refer to dopamine as that happy hormone, which, to no surprise by the nickname, gives us an increase in our feelings of happiness and motivation. We all have those days where we might feel overwhelmed or upset, and so turning to something like journaling or painting might be exactly the thing we need to get rid of those unwanted feelings and replace them with something better. Art is great for mental health, and alongside that, it's fun. As stated before, art has so many different forms, and on top of that, there's a lot of freedom given to create whatever is on our mind. One skill that tends to be associated with people who practice in art is that they've learned to become and make use of their creativity. Let's quickly go back to the quote stated before about how Pablo Picasso said that children are born an artist. A lot of children love the arts, and it's no surprise that they have very creative minds. I mean, give them a crayon and paper and they'll hopefully be entertained for a while. Unlike many adults and teens, kids don't think too hard about whether or not there are really any good at something. They just do whatever it is because it's fun to them and it allows them to use their imagination. Nowadays, we hesitate, thinking we're just not made for some things or it's too late to start something new, when in fact, we should actually be learning from these kids and doing something like picking up a pencil and paper and drawing for the fun of it. Now, all that being said, let's do a quick recap. Having a wide imagination and expressing ourselves is what makes us human. Everyone is born with some type of creative mind, which is why it's important to express ourselves through art. There are so many different artistic hobbies someone can pick up. It's therapeutic and it's entertaining. Art isn't something with just rigid rules or such requirements, and it could be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. So why not give it a try?